And what we will do today is we will talk about the course so far. I will answer all your questions, and we will also talk about the projects. And yeah, so for asking questions, there is first the link I shared in Telegram and Slack. Then here on YouTube, the link is pinned. Yeah, you can, I think I'm sharing my screen, yeah. So we can just click on this thing and share, ask your questions. And then of course you can just use this QR code or just go to Slido and put MLZ, which is MLOps Zoomcamp, whatever. So what I want to start with is I want to open our MLOps Zoomcamp GitHub repo. All of you probably know where this repo is by now, I hope. And then I go to this 07 project folder. So in this folder, we will still need to create a project for this iteration with this cohort. It will happen soon. In the meantime, you can look how it looked last year. Before we do this, I will just go through this document. So the goal for the project is to put everything we learned in practice. And that means that we want to create an end-to-end machine learning project with focus, of course, not on the machine learning component, but more on the MLOps part. So yes, we have a model, and yeah, basically what everything we did, we covered in the course, right? And basically for each of the modules we had, there is a bullet point here. You're not limited to the technologies we covered in the course. So let's say if instead of Prefect you want to use Mage, Airflow, whatever, go for this. If you want to learn a new cloud, like instead of using AWS, you want to use GCP or Azure or whatever, also go for this. So basically you can use any technology you want, but maybe it's not a good idea to put too many unfamiliar technologies. Maybe one or two is enough, it's fine, but the rest try to use what we covered in the course. But of course, it's up to you. And yeah, actually, this is no longer a draft, but this is the criteria that you will use to evaluate your peers. Because once you create a project, the next step after that would be reviewing your peers. So you will receive 3 projects of your fellow students, and you will need to evaluate these projects. And this is something you can also keep in mind while creating your own project, because this is how your project will be evaluated. So you know the criteria for evaluation in advance, so you can build your project in such a way that you will receive most top scores for each of the criteria of the dimensions. Yeah, you can go through this criteria yourself. Maybe the interesting one is cloud, because I remember last time we spoke on office hours, there were questions about that. And the idea is here, yeah, so you, some people asked, hey, do we have to use cloud for that? The answer is no, you do not have to. It's advisable, but you do not have to. And you can actually get some points even without using a cloud, right? And the way to do this is you can use local stack. Local stack mimics AWS. So you sort of do this on the cloud, but then instead of using the actual cloud, you use your local copy of the cloud, local stack. So this would be, I think I should update it here to make it more explicit. This would give you 2 points, right? Because you sort of use the cloud even though like it's not the actual cloud. Or you can use a container management platform like Kubernetes. So you can run Kubernetes locally, and if you deploy things to Kubernetes, it will be also like cloud in air quotes, right? But it's still, because like with Kubernetes, even though we didn't cover it here, in case you want to learn it or you already know it, yeah, it can run anywhere. It can run locally, it can run in the cloud, and it does not change the way how you create things. But to get 4 points, you will actually need to use a cloud along with the AIC tool. AIC is like a tool like Terraform or CloudFormation, or infrastructure as code tool, right? And this is one of the best practices, one of the things from the best practices lectures. Okay, the rest I think is pretty clear. Yeah, you can just go through everything and maybe ask your questions there. Ask your questions if you have any questions about that, either right now or later in Slack. I hope it's more or less self-explanatory. Yeah, so the cloud one is the most interesting one. And then the way it will be organized, we will have a page like that, but for this cohort, for this year, and we will have links. So we'll have a form for submitting your project. Let me see. Yeah, I think I will stop sharing my screen for a second, and then I will reopen the old form just to show you how it will look like. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen again. So this is how the form looks like. The form will slightly change. It will be slightly different. The only difference will be in this form is, in addition to your name and your solution, it will contain also the title of the project. And the title could be predicting the duration of a taxi ride, or predicting the duration of a student performance, or whatever. So just give your project a title. So it will be an extra field here. But the rest, I think it's more or less self-explanatory. Please read this thing here. So first your name, because if you complete the project, or when you complete the project, you will receive a certificate if you do not fail the project. And then for the project, we will need, or for the certificate, we will need to know your name, right? So put your name here, right? And then the solution here is, it should be a link to your GitHub. And make sure that when you create a project, a repository on GitHub, it's not private, because usually there are always 2 or 3 students who accidentally made their repo private, and then during the peer review, your peers, your fellow students cannot evaluate the project. So please make sure it's not private. Then include your commit ID. This is needed to make sure that the version that you submitted will actually be evaluated. And yeah, the rest is like similar to the form you use for homework. Yep. And I do recommend to send yourself a copy of the responses, because it might happen that for some reasons, I don't know how it happens, but there is always one student who submitted a project, but then it somehow did not appear in the evaluation forms in the next step. And so you have like a proof that you actually submitted. It's better to actually send yourself a copy of the responses. Okay, I'm going back here. So you will have a form like that you will need to use for submitting a project. And then after you finish the project, after you submit it, we will have peer reviewing stage, and it will look like that. So for each reviewer, for each hash, so this is for each reviewer, for each of you, you will receive 3 projects to review. So for example, if your hash is this one, you will need to review this project, and this project, these 3 projects, right? And then there is another form where you assess your project, the project you got from your fellow student, using these dimensions, these criteria. So that's how it roughly looks like. And then at the end, of course, like as you submit feedback, as you evaluate the projects, we will also share the feedback you share with your fellow students. And so it will look like that. But yeah, maybe right now it's too much information. But as we go along, as we do this thing, hopefully what I say will make sense and will not be too confusing. But let's see, of course, if it's confusing, it's fine. Just ask your question in Slack and we will help you. Okay, now that's about projects. Right now we're still on module 6. We're still finishing the best practices section. But yeah, if you're already finished, if you have already finished it, you can go ahead and start working on the project. And the first step you will need to do is select a data set, right? So this is probably the most difficult one, at least from what I understood from other students. from previous students. Try to not spend too much time here. And if you have trouble selecting dataset, again, go to Slack and say, okay, I don't know what to do. These are the things I think I should take, but I don't know if they're good or not. Yeah, and we will help you, of course. Okay, now I will go back to this thing and we'll answer your questions. Kinesis costs money. Are there any free services that I can use to use API? Maybe API gateway? Okay, I'm not sure how API and Kinesis are connected. So API gateway is also not free. I think there are some requests you send to API gateway are free under the free tier, but then as you make more requests, I think at some point they become paid. Anyways, Kinesis does cost money indeed, and one of the options to save money if you want to use streaming, you can use local stack, and this is what we showed in module 6. In module 6, we showed how to use local stack to mimic the behavior of Kinesis. So you kind of can develop something with Kinesis, but yeah, you will run things locally. But yeah, Kinesis does cost money, and if you want to use Kinesis, then you will need to pay something. There is an alternative to Kinesis. I don't know how well it plays with lambdas and stuff, but you can use Confluent Cloud. And yeah, this is a thing from the developers of Kafka. Now, so many ads. Yeah, this one. So like this is actually, I think it's free for some number of streams. So then you can create a Kafka stream, but then you will need to figure out how to consume from this stream. But yeah, this could be also an option because it should be free, unlike Kinesis, yeah. Okay, hopefully it does answer your question. Let's see what's the next one. Parallel to the project, there will be also an MLOps Kaggle competition like the one we have done in MLOps Zoomcamp. Yeah, I did want to do a competition, but then life got in the way. So we, as you noticed right now, we do not have a competition because we did not organize one. We had some ideas and we still want to do that. We still want to run a competition, but later. So we will probably again run it as a part of ML Zoomcamp this year, 2023. So stay tuned, and then you can try to, we will make announcements in the Telegram channel and in the newsletter. So if you are subscribed to the newsletter, you will know about that. Yeah, unfortunately, we did not have capacity to organize a competition for this summer, but the idea is still there, and we still want to do a competition. And maybe next year we will try to do two, one for MLOps and one for ML Zoomcamp. Okay, how to structure the project code, file structure. Yeah, there are many ways to do that. What I like is, so there are, it also depends on what tool you use. So for example, there is a tool called Kedro for creating pipelines. They are, they have a suggested project structure that you can, project structure. Then, I don't know if I will find anything right now, but yeah, maybe you can check it. I like the structure, and with this Kedra news, it creates project with like some sort of it uses a template to create a project structure. Then another thing also uses template called cookie cutter data science. Okay, so many ads. Cookie cutter data science. And yeah, so this is a similar thing. So it's cookie cutter is a thing for creating for using templates for creating projects. And there is one that is called cookie cutter data science. And so there is one from driven data. There are multiple templates that you can find. So this one, I think this is the one I wanted to talk about. Well, at least it has quite a lot of stars. And yeah, they have structure, right? So they have here repo name where you put your Python code. Then we have a folder with tests. I don't know what hooks are. And then you have a folder for documentation. And then you put requirements or your pip file in the root folder, in the root directory. And then yeah, readme is also in the root. So that's one of the possible structures. And you actually see like, yeah, here in this cookie cutter data science, they have this directory structure of your new project. And they describe, so there is a folder for data, there is a folder for docs, there is a folder for models, notebooks, reports, source, and so on. So yeah, I think this is quite a good structure. But there is no like the right structure. At least I don't know if there is any reference structure that everyone should use, because like there are many different options. Can you dispute a peer review if you do not agree with this? Yes, you can. It has not happened. Like it works really well. But if you do not agree with the score you received and it's a big deal for you, then just reach out to the course team and we will make sure that everyone is satisfied. So it's fine. Do not worry about this, but if it happens, we'll resolve it. I will struggle learning Terraform because I do not know much about networking and cloud stuff. Do you recommend any study material for that? Well, we do have some materials in the course, right? I hope it's sufficient. If it's not, yeah, I don't know if you actually need networking right now. Yeah, I will think about that. So nothing comes to my head apart from just, practicing and reading Terraform documentation, because usually if there is a service from, let's say, AWS that you want to provision using Terraform, what you do is you just go to, let's say, Google and you say Kinesis stream Terraform, right? And then it brings you to a documentation page about Kinesis stream and Terraform, and then it gives you the syntax, how exactly you create it. That is not how it should look like. Why it's just data? This example, maybe this is what it should be. Yeah, so this is, so you need a resource. And then, yeah, you just, basically whatever you do in the web interface has a counterpart here with all the, I don't know, shard counts, retention period, whatever, like all the knobs you have on the web interface have a field here that you can configure, right? And this is how you do this. But of course, for that, you need to know what are the services that are available in AWS or other different cloud provider. And for that, I don't know what's the best resource. Like there are different resources. Yeah, I guess Google is your friend, or a different search engine. So yeah, what I want to say is like, if you try to solve a problem and then you want to find a solution, a cloud solution for that, you can just try to use Google to find what service, which service from AWS I need to solve this particular problem. Like let's say I want to use whatever, streaming. What is the service I can use? And then you will see that there is Kinesis, there is Managed Kafka, there is something else. And then based on whatever you see online, you decide what you go with. And then once you decide which service you use, you Google service name Terraform, and then you see the syntax, you copy this, you paste your Terraform file, and then yeah, you change things there. I know it's not the answer you wanted to get, but unfortunately I don't have a better one. Yeah, actually maybe brethren is onto something, because ChatGPT can actually help you, right? Because like Google may just overload you with information, but ChatGPT might be better. So you can just ask ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, I have a Kinesis stream and give me syntax for that. So I use ChatGPT for example, creating IAM policies in AWS because they are always confusing for me. And ChatGPT is so good at doing this. So I just can tell it, hey, I want a policy in IAM for read-only access to S3 to a bucket with this name. And then it just gives me a policy. So I really love ChatGPT and I use it every day, almost every day. So I do recommend using it for anyone, not just aspiring data scientists, but anyone. So I think it's an awesome tool and use it. Okay, will I get a full score for project is developed on the cloud if I use cloud deployed MLflow and Prefect Cloud, but the model training is local? Yeah, you will. But remember that for getting the full score for the cloud part, you need to use Terraform or a similar tool. So if you use them, then you will get full points. If you don't, then it will be just 2 points, not 4. The last module will be the project. What will be the format of the task? Will I have to choose? I think I just more or less explained, but I did not cover this part, right? So for this, if you need to, there is no proposed list. There is no proposed list of projects. You will need to come up with a task yourself. So you will need to do a bit of research and think, okay, what kind of data set you can use for your project. And then once you found a data set that you're satisfied with, you just start using. So you build a simple model. It does not have to be a complex model. Build a simple model and then do all the stuff we talked about in the course. And again, if you have problems coming up with an idea, project idea or data set, just write in Slack and then we'll try to help you. If I won't be able to work on the project in the next couple of weeks, should I indicate this anyhow or simply apply my project for the second cohort? You should not indicate it anyhow. So if you submit the project, it will be used. If you do not, then we will just, we will just not use it. And what I'm trying to say is you don't need to tell us it in any way. All you do is you just submit your project for the second cohort and then we will process it. Yeah, so that's roughly it. And I don't think I mentioned, at least in this stream, for there are 2 attempts to submit a project. So if you have a vacation or you have some, I don't know, for some reasons you cannot work on a project, it's fine. You just submit your project for the second attempt, right? Or maybe you submitted your project, but some things weren't the best. And for some reasons you did not pass the project. This can happen. You have a second attempt, so you can take the project that failed, you can improve it and you can resubmit it, right? And it also applies to people who started later. So I know that not all of you who take the course started from week 1. Some of you maybe joined in the middle of the course. So for you, you still have time to catch up with the material and start working on the project for the second attempt, right? And then you submit the project as a second attempt project, and then you still get a chance to finish your project. Do you think there will be a separate MLOps engineer specialty as DevOps, or data scientists know MLOps techniques or ML platforms will solve these problems? So you use future tense here, will be a separate MLOps engineer specialty. But it's actually, I think, the role has existed for at least 2 years. So there is already a specialty, a role, MLOps engineer. Even though I don't specifically like it, because it's not really clear what's the difference between MLOps engineer and ML engineer. We can think of differences, but from what I see, ML engineers usually do MLOps stuff, right? And they are kind of DevOps of ML world, right? I think the difference is that, okay, let's say if we talk about ML engineers and MLOps engineers, MLOps engineers perhaps focus more on the tooling. So somebody needs to set up MLflow, somebody needs to set up Prefect, somebody needs to set up, I don't know, Kubernetes, Kubeflow pipelines or whatever. And usually these people are the ops people, DevOps people, or we cannot call them MLOps because they create this infrastructure. So they look after the infrastructure, and ML engineers more like use it. So that's a possible distinction, and roles like that do exist. So MLOps engineers focus more on infrastructure, and ML engineers focus more on using this. But in practice, I think it's still like platform engineers or DevOps engineers or whatever you call them, engineers take care of the infrastructure because it's not very specific to machine learning. Like a person with a visual DevOps background can create an MLflow instance and run it in the cloud, usually. From my practice, this is what I saw. So typically, you do not necessarily need to hire a specific person with MLOps background to provision all these tools, right? So typically, in practice, ML engineers focus more on, like, let's say, knowing how to use these tools, and then perhaps they work with DevOps engineers to set these tools up. Do you use any of the tools we study in your work? Yeah. Well, right now, kind of my work is Datatox Club, but before that, I worked as a principal data scientist. The only tool I did not use from this set of tools covered was Prefect. So at work, at OLX, where I used to work, we use Terraform for creating ML pipelines. But I do think Prefect is much, much, much better because it's more lightweight. It's much easier to get started. And actually, yeah, I know that now Airflow has improved since, like compared to 2 years ago, now it's much better. But still, it's a bit, in my opinion, a bit more difficult to get started with. So Prefect, I use Prefect only for like toy projects. Not at work, but the rest, yeah. Okay, how will the task be evaluated? Through a presentation or like the rest of the models? So there will be no presentation. You will need to use, and by the way, which task are you talking about? I guess you're talking about the project, right? So for the project, we have this criteria, and you will need to use this criteria to evaluate your peers. And this is how your peers will evaluate your project using this criteria. I hope it answers the question. I can see ML Zoomcamp repo from 2024. Is it working? So you're talking about ML Zoomcamp, not MLOps Zoomcamp, right? Let's see. ML Zoomcamp. Then I go to cohorts, and like there's this one, and I can see it. So I am not sure what you're referring to. So this is the ML Zoomcamp repo. Perhaps you maybe meant this one. Cohorts. Yeah. Well, maybe like you can just DM me saying what you meant. Maybe there's indeed a problem. It's not something I can just see right now. Could be, yeah. How can I get our project name? Well, if you use a data set about a specific thing, let's say student performance or mobile phones or parking spaces or I don't know, galaxies or whatever, use that for your project name. So if you predict, I don't know, if an object you see in the sky is a comet or meteor or whatever, I'm not good at astronomy, so maybe what I say does not make any sense. But like here is a problem, like flying space object classification, right? And then you just put that as your project name. Yeah. Well, once you select the data set and you are absolutely clueless what could be the project name, then again, use Slack, and I will show you how to use ChatGPT to come up with a good project name. Can we use NLP data for the project? Evidently seems to support this modality. Are there any restrictions from the other required tools? Yeah, you can use NLP. I think so. When it comes to Prefect, it will work. MLflow, yeah, MLflow or weights and biases will also work, because like when you train a model, you will need to have some parameters there. Or I don't know, if you're fine-tuning a large language model, then again, there are some parameters. And you track these parameters with MLflow or weights and biases, then you orchestrate it with Prefect, then you monitor it with Evidently or a different tool, and then yeah, you have all the best practices. And I probably missed something. Let's see. Yeah, there's deployment part, yeah, of course. So you deploy it somehow. So from what I see, you can, it's absolutely fine to use an NLP project or a computer vision project, because all the tools we studied do cover that. I haven't done the best practices portion yet, but I think I will struggle deploying the project to the cloud. How would you suggest overcoming or get started? So first, you maybe focus on making it work locally, creating a Flask app or Fast API app or whatever. Once it's working, you submit your project, and then you spend the rest of the time trying to figure out how to deploy it to the cloud. And yeah, that could be it. So in the worst case, you just lose a couple of points for the cloud part. But yeah, it's kind of a very generic question. It's hard to answer it without knowing details. In which way you want to deploy it? Like, is it going to be a batch way, streaming way, or web service way? And what do you think could be the problems? Like, is it accessing the cloud or something else? So I think I need to know more details to properly help you. And then again, you can use Slack if you find any roadblocks. But first, try to make it work locally, and then after that, deploy it to the cloud. Yeah, I don't know why emojis on my computer are so weird. It used to be fine, but now it's like that. Anyways, you are more than welcome. As a newcomer, I have to allocate my time for the project. In your opinion, what are the most time-consuming and challenging aspects of building this project? From what I saw, surprisingly, the most difficult part is selecting the problem to work on. Go figure. But yeah, start with that. And then the rest, I think all of them are kind of equally time-consuming. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, once you have the project, once you created like a simple model, you should be fine. I'm pretty sure. And you probably know already which part you struggled most with. So then you know what is the challenge for you personally, because like everyone is different. Again, sorry for not really replying to this question. But yeah, ironically, from what I saw, most problems were with finding the right problem. If I'm not smart enough to be an ML engineer, but I like MLOps, what can you advise? Well, first, I would suggest not to think about yourself as not smart enough, because this is not going to help. And then, yeah, if you like MLOps, just practice makes perfect. So you work on multiple projects and you create a project portfolio, and then you apply your skills and practice more at work. I guess that's roughly the plan. I know it sounds super easy, but the difficult part here is actually putting effort in creating these projects or finding these projects. And I think you got it. Since you're here, it's almost the end of the course. You managed to finish all these modules so far. Trust me, you're good enough to be an ML engineer. So don't worry about that. You just need to practice more. When is exactly the day to start the first round of the project? The calendar says, yeah, I mean, technically you can start now, or you could have started 1 week ago. It does not matter. We will create the form soon, but yeah, since the deadline for submitting the week 6, module 6, I should say, module 6 homework is indeed July 16th. So we will count 2 weeks from that to set up the deadline, to calculate the deadline for the project. But nobody stops you from working on this project right now. Yeah. So formally, maybe the end of 16th, but yeah, you can start now. Is scheduling Python programs using Prefect a part of the work required for the final project? Using an orchestrator is required for the project. It does not have to be Prefect, but since we use Prefect for the course, you can go with Prefect, yes. But there should be an orchestrator. And if we go back to this criteria, where are the criteria? So go to projects here, and we have all these peer review criteria. And we see that one of the dimensions here is workflow orchestration. So if you don't use Prefect or any other workflow orchestration, you receive 0 points, but the world does not end here. It means that you will just receive fewer points, right? But again, yeah, to answer your question, if you use Prefect and you deploy your workflow, then you will receive the maximum amount of points. And it is indeed a part of the project to do that. Any roadmap to develop the skills necessary? Yes, I'm glad you're here, because this course is a perfect roadmap to develop the skills you need to work as a ML engineer and use, like, to develop MLOps skills, let's say. And yeah, so you just follow the course module by module, and this will give you the roadmap. Thanks for asking this. Yeah. Oh, wow, 3 more. I was going to say, since there are no more questions, we can stop that, but yeah, we have 5 more minutes. Let me take a sip of water and we'll continue. I will not be able to share data I use for the project. Can I be evaluated? That's a tricky one. Because one of the points here, again, if we go to our criteria, just 1 second. One of the criteria here is reproducibility. And without the data, it's not possible to reproduce the code, the project, right? But if it happens that there is no way to maybe use generated data that looks similar to your data that you cannot share, yeah, that's actually one of the possible solutions, right? So you generate a data that looks similar to the actual data, but it's shareable. But yeah, if there is no way to share the data or data that looks similar to the data you use, then you will just receive 0 points, or not 0, but like 2 points, right? Even though like it does not explicitly mention data, but like you cannot really reproduce the project without data. So again, I should take a note to update the criteria for reproducibility. And the other thing I wanted to update, the wording is cloud. Right? So for cloud, we want to mention local stack here. And for reproducibility, mention data, right? So I will take care of that. But yeah, to answer your question, you will be affiliated, but you will receive fewer points because your project will not be reproducible. I am behind the schedule on the course content. Would it be a problem if I use a classical ML problem and just focus on the ops part of the project? I'm glad you asked. It's not a problem. It's actually, this is how it should be. Because the purpose of this course is not to develop a state-of-the-art model, but know how all the tools about, like, operationalizing, putting them in practice, putting these models in practice. And everything you do with the classical, let's say, logistic regression or linear regression, can be done with more complex models. And actually, For this course, if you remember, we use linear regression. It's as classical as it can get. So yeah, it's actually advisable that you use a classical ML problem and focus on the ops part. How many points are needed to pass evaluation? Few. We will actually calculate, we will look at the distribution of the scores, and we will see, we just want to make sure that most of you pass the course. Only like slackers who do not put any effort do not pass, and then we'll just look at the distribution of the scores, and then we will determine the threshold to make sure that most of you pass. So I cannot answer this question right now, but don't worry, if you put enough effort, you will pass the project. And again, if something happens that if you think that the evaluation you receive is unjust, doesn't do you justice, then talk to us. But it has never happened in practice. So at the end, everyone was satisfied. Is the new course cohort starting today? No. What kind of classical ML problems are there? Kaggle tutorials? I don't know. Like, you just look at the data set, and I guess as long as it's not pictures or text, you can just use whatever classical model. Like, the model that you use does not have to be perfect. If you just go with a linear regression, logistic regression, you're fine. If I start today, will I be able to complete the project? Depends on you. So you will have roughly 6 weeks to cover all the content, which is like 6 modules, more or less. It's doable if you allocate enough time. Yes, it's doable. And then you submit your project as a second attempt. Or maybe if you already know some basics of MLOps, you can start working on the project and try to pick up the skills you need from the course. Maybe it's more effective if you're like really time restricted. So it really depends on your background, on many things. But the answer is yes, it's possible if you give it enough time. Yeah, and thank you for joining me today. And also, please have a great week ahead. And I think I should stop sharing because I'm afraid like 5 more questions will pop up and I will have to answer them. But do not hesitate to ask questions in Slack, like always, and we'll help you answer these questions. So I don't know if we will need to do any more office hours, but this one was fun. Maybe we'll do one more, maybe not. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, please enjoy the rest of the course, enjoy the project, and the project is actually the most rewarding part. So now you will actually start having fun. And with this note, I'm going to stop the screen, to stop the stream, and